My wife asked for a trial separation and took half the furniture. She forgot one item, and it cost her everything. I'm standing in what used to be our living room, holding a cup of coffee that tastes like disappointment and staring at the ghost marks on the hardwood where our sectional sofa used to live. Rhea Orrin, my wife of 17 years, managed to strip this place cleaner than a repo crew on commission. The movers she hired, 3 guys who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else, carried out everything worth having. The good couch, the dining set, the bedroom furniture that actually matched something. They left me with the dog-chewed recliner, a wobbly coffee table, and one ugly antique armoire that nobody in their right mind would want. Trial separation, she called it when she handed me the papers last week. Let's keep this civilized, Silas. No need to get lawyers involved just yet. Civilized. Right. About as civilized as a pack of wolves dividing up a deer carcass. I flipped through the separation agreement again, the pages already wrinkled from my sweaty palms. Most of it reads like standard legal boilerplate. Division of assets, temporary custody arrangements for our 16-year-old daughter Tessa, financial responsibilities. But there's this one clause buried on page 3 that keeps nagging at me. Something about possessed property versus owned property. The language is weird, almost deliberately confusing. The house feels staged now, like those model homes they show on weekend tours. Everything necessary is here, but nothing that makes it feel like anyone actually lives in it. Even the walls look different. Lighter rectangles marking where our wedding photos and family portraits used to hang. My phone buzzes. Text from Rhea. Hope the transition isn't too difficult. Remember, this is temporary. We're figuring things out. Figuring things out. That's rich. I've been figuring things out for months, ever since I started noticing the little changes. The way she'd tilt her phone away when texting, the sudden interest in working late on Thursdays, the new perfume that smelled like she was trying too hard. I walk to the kitchen and pour the rest of my coffee down the drain. Through the window, I can see Mrs. Gina Martinez from next door peeking through her blinds. She's been watching the house like a hawk since the moving truck left yesterday. This neighborhood runs on gossip like cars run on gasoline, and I'm sure she's already got theories about why half our stuff disappeared overnight. The armoire sits in the corner of the living room like a wooden monument to bad taste. It belonged to my Uncle Harold, who left it to me when he passed 5 years ago. The thing is massive, dark mahogany with carved details that probably looked impressive in 1920 but now just look old. Rhea always hated it. Called it that hideous monstrosity whenever she had to dust around it. Funny thing is, she specifically told the movers to leave it behind. We don't want that ugly piece, I heard her tell the crew chief. Just leave it. He can figure out what to do with it. At the time, I figured she was being spiteful. One last insult before walking out the door. But now, reading through this contract again, I'm starting to wonder if there was more to it. My phone rings. Frankie Delacroix, my best friend since high school and the only guy I know who managed to retire from the police force without becoming completely cynical. How you holding up, buddy? His voice carries that careful tone people use when they're not sure if you're going to break down or start throwing things. I'm fine. House is quieter, that's for sure. Want some company? I can bring beer and we can talk trash about your soon-to-be ex-wife like civilized human beings. Thanks, but I'm good. Actually doing some reading. Reading? Since when do you read anything that doesn't have blueprints in it? I manage a laugh, since my wife handed me a legal document that might as well be written in ancient Greek. Need me to take a look? I dealt with plenty of separation agreements back when I was working domestic cases. Maybe later. I want to go through it myself first. After we hang up, I spread the contract pages across the coffee table and grab a yellow highlighter from the kitchen junk drawer. Time to read this thing like my life depends on it, because I'm starting to think it might. The clause that's bothering me is in Section 4B. Party A relinquishes claim to all possessed property removed from primary residence, while Party B maintains rights to owned property remaining on premises, including but not limited to inherited items, trust-related assets, and articles of sentimental or historical value. I read it 3 times before it starts to make sense. Rhea gets to keep everything she took, but I keep everything that stayed. Seems straightforward enough, except for that bit about trust-related assets. Uncle Harold didn't just leave me an ugly armoire. He left me a trust fund that I've barely touched in 5 years. Nothing huge, maybe $40,000, but it's been sitting there earning interest while I forgot about it. The trust documents are locked in that armoire, along with some old family papers and a few other things I haven't looked at in years. I walk over to the armoire and run my hand along its carved surface. The key is still in the lock, same place it's been since Uncle Harold's funeral. I turn it, and the heavy doors swing open with a creak that sounds like something from a horror movie. Inside, everything is exactly as I left it. The trust documents in a manila envelope, some old photographs, Uncle Harold's pocket watch, and a few other family heirlooms that Rhea never cared about. But there's something else. A newer envelope with my name written on it in Uncle Harold's shaky handwriting. I open it and find a letter dated just 2 weeks before he passed away. Silas, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you finally opened this old thing. I know Rhea hates this armoire, but don't let her talk you into getting rid of it. There's more to it than meets the eye. The trust I set up has some unusual provisions that your lawyer probably didn't explain very well. Check Section 12 of the trust documents. And whatever you do, don't let anyone remove this armoire from your house without reading that section first. Your old uncle knew a thing or two about protecting family assets. Harold. My hands are shaking as I dig through the envelope for the trust documents. Section 12 is near the back, in language so dense it makes the separation agreement look like a children's book. But the gist of it is clear enough. If I ever separate from my spouse and she removes her property from our primary residence, the trust automatically transfers additional assets to me. Assets I didn't even know existed. According to this document, Uncle Harold owned a small apartment building downtown. 3 units, fully rented, generating about $2,000 a month in income. The trust was set up so that if I ever needed financial independence, like in a divorce situation, the building would become mine outright. But only if my spouse voluntarily removes her possessed property from the primary residence, thereby demonstrating intent to establish separate living arrangements. Rhea didn't just take half our furniture. She triggered a clause that's about to make me a landlord. I grab my laptop and start researching the address listed in the trust documents. Sure enough, there's a small brick building on Maple Street with 3 apartments. The property records show it's owned by the Silas Orrin family trust, with me listed as the primary beneficiary. My phone buzzes again. Another text from Rhea. Forgot to mention, I'll need you to sign some papers regarding Uncle Harold's trust. My lawyer says there might be some tax implications we need to address. Can you meet tomorrow? I stare at the message for a long time before responding. What kind of tax implications? Her reply comes back fast. Nothing major. Just some paperwork to make sure everything is handled properly during our separation. You trust me, right? Trust her. That's funny. I spend the next 2 hours on the phone with the law office that handled Uncle Harold's estate. The lawyer who originally set up the trust retired last year, but his replacement is happy to walk me through the details. Turns out Uncle Harold was even craftier than I thought. The trust wasn't just designed to protect assets during a divorce, it was designed to punish a spouse who tried to manipulate the divorce process. Your uncle was very specific about the triggers, the lawyer explains. He wanted to make sure that if your wife ever tried to gain an unfair advantage by controlling the timing or terms of a separation, she'd end up worse off than if she'd just been honest from the start. And Rhea taking the furniture triggered this? Taking the furniture and asking you to sign papers related to the trust? Yes, that definitely qualifies. She's essentially trying to have it both ways, separate from you financially while still maintaining some control over your inherited assets. Your uncle anticipated exactly this scenario. When I hang up, I'm grinning for the first time in months. Rhea thinks she's been playing chess while I've been playing checkers. Turns out Uncle Harold set up the board long before either of us even knew we were in a game. But I'm not ready to show my hand yet. If Rhea wants to play games with legal documents, I'll play along. At least until I figure out exactly what she's really after. I walk back to the armoire and look at all those family papers I've been ignoring for years. Time to see what other surprises Uncle Harold left for me. The next morning, I'm sitting in a downtown coffee shop waiting for Rhea to show up with her mysterious paperwork. I chose this place specifically because it's always crowded, always noisy, and the baristas are too busy to pay attention to customer conversations. Perfect for the kind of meeting where you want witnesses but not eavesdroppers. Rhea walks in 15 minutes late, which is standard for her these days. She's wearing a navy blue business suit that probably costs more than I make in a week, and she's carrying a leather briefcase that looks like it could double as a weapon. Her auburn hair is pulled back in a tight bun that makes her look like she's ready to foreclose on someone's house. Sorry I'm late, she says, sliding into the seat across from me. Traffic was terrible. Traffic is always terrible downtown at 9 in the morning. She's late because she wanted to make an entrance, wanted me to sit here wondering if she'd show up at all. It's a power play, and we both know it. No problem. I brought some reading material. I tap the trust documents I've got spread across the table. Figured I'd brush up on Uncle Harold's paperwork before signing anything new. Something flickers across her face. Surprise, maybe, or annoyance. She was hoping I'd just sign whatever she put in front of me without reading it first. That's thorough of you. She opens her briefcase and pulls out a single sheet of paper. This is just a simple transfer document. It allows me to handle some of the trust-related tax filings during our separation, so you don't have to worry about the paperwork. I take the document and read it carefully. It's not simple at all. What it actually does is give Rhea power of attorney over the trust assets, allowing her to make financial decisions on my behalf, including selling assets if she deems it necessary for tax optimization. This says you can sell the apartment building. What apartment building? She's good. Her expression doesn't change at all, but I catch the slight pause before she answers. She knows exactly what apartment building I'm talking about. The one Uncle Harold left me, the one that's been generating rental income for 5 years while I was too stupid to pay attention. Now her mask slips a little. Silas, I don't know what you think you've discovered, but I think I've discovered that my wife has been planning this separation a lot longer than she let on. I think she's been researching my assets and figured out how to get her hands on them. I lean back in my chair and watch her face. The question is whether she's working alone or if she's got help. Rhea's phone buzzes. She glances at it quickly, then puts it face down on the table, but not before I catch a glimpse of the name on the screen. Mason. Mason Drake. I know that name. He's a lawyer at Rhea's firm, specializes in estate planning and asset protection. Divorced about 2 years ago in what the local legal community still talks about as a particularly nasty case. His ex-wife ended up with almost nothing, thanks to some creative legal maneuvering that skirted the edge of ethical guidelines. Friend of yours? I nod toward her phone. Colleague. We're working on a case together. Must be an important case. He's been texting you a lot lately. Her eyes narrow. Have you been monitoring my phone? Don't need to. You leave it sitting around the house with the screen facing up. Hard not to notice when the same name keeps popping up at weird hours. She snatches the phone off the table and drops it into her purse. I don't like what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Fact 1. You've been in contact with Mason Drake, a lawyer who specializes in separating people from their assets. Fact 2. You suddenly want a trial separation right after discovering that I inherited more than just ugly furniture. Fact 3. You're asking me to sign a document that would give you control over those assets. You're being paranoid. Am I? Then you won't mind if I hold on to this paperwork for a few days. Let my own lawyer take a look at it. You don't have a lawyer. I do now. That stops her cold. She's been counting on me being too cheap or too trusting to hire legal representation. The old Silas probably would have just signed whatever she put in front of him and hoped for the best, but the old Silas didn't know he was sitting on a small real estate empire. Fine, she says after a long pause. Take your time, but don't drag this out unnecessarily. The longer we wait, the more complicated the tax situation becomes. After she leaves, I sit in the coffee shop for another hour, watching people and thinking. Rhea's not working alone. That much is obvious. Mason Drake is helping her, probably in exchange for a cut of whatever they're planning to steal from me. The question is how far they're willing to go. My phone rings. It's Tessa, calling from school. Dad? Mom said you guys had a meeting this morning. How did it go? It went fine, honey. Just some boring paperwork stuff. Are you guys going to work things out? That's the question I've been dreading. Tessa is 16, old enough to understand that her parents' marriage is falling apart, but young enough to hope it can still be saved. How do you explain to your daughter that her mother is trying to steal your inheritance? I don't know yet, Tess. We're still figuring things out. Mom's been acting weird lately. She keeps having these long phone calls where she goes into another room and closes the door, and she's been dressing up more, like she's trying to impress someone. Smart kid. She's picked up on the same things I have. People act differently when they're stressed, I tell her. Don't worry about it too much, okay? After we hang up, I drive over to the apartment building on Maple Street. It's a solid brick structure, probably built in the 1960s, with 3 units and a small parking lot. Not fancy, but well maintained. There's a for rent sign in one of the windows, which explains why the trust income has been a little lower lately. I walk around the building, checking the exterior, looking at the windows and doors. Everything seems in good shape. Uncle Harold might have been eccentric, but he wasn't careless with his investments. There's a property management company handling the day-to-day operations, rent collection, maintenance requests, tenant screening. I make a mental note to call them tomorrow and introduce myself as the new owner, assuming I can keep Rhea and Mason from stealing the place out from under me. That evening, I'm back home staring at the armoire when Frankie stops by with a 6-pack of beer and a bag of Chinese takeout. You look like someone who's been thinking too hard, he says, settling into the dog-chewed recliner. That's never a good sign. I tell him about the meeting with Rhea, about Mason Drake, about the apartment building and the trust documents. Frankie listens without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making notes on a small pad he pulls from his shirt pocket. So, your wife is trying to rob you blind with the help of a lawyer who specializes in robbing people blind, he summarizes when I'm finished, and they think you're too dumb to figure it out. That's about the size of it. What's your next move? I'm not sure yet. I could just refuse to sign anything and wait for them to make the first move. Or I could go on the offensive, maybe hire a lawyer and start asking uncomfortable questions. Frankie takes a long pull from his beer and looks around the half-empty living room. You know what I'd do? What? I'd let them think they're winning. Give them enough rope to hang themselves with. Meaning? Meaning your wife and her boyfriend are planning something. They've got a timeline, a strategy, probably some kind of endgame they think you can't see coming, but if you start fighting back too early, they'll just change their approach. Better to let them commit to their current plan and then turn it against them. He's right. If I come out swinging now, Rhea and Mason will just find a different way to get what they're after. But if I play along, let them think they're manipulating me, I might be able to figure out exactly what they're planning. There's something else, I tell him. Tessa's been noticing things. The way Rhea's been acting, the phone calls, the way she's been dressing up. I think she suspects something. Kids are smart. They pick up on stuff adults think they're hiding. I don't want her to get caught in the middle of this. She's already in the middle of it. Question is whether you're going to protect her by being honest about what's happening, or whether you're going to let her mother keep lying to her. That hits hard. Tessa deserves to know the truth about what's happening to our family, but she also deserves to have at least one parent who's not trying to manipulate her. After Frankie leaves, I sit in the living room with all the lights off, thinking about Uncle Harold and his ugly armoire. The old man was craftier than I ever gave him credit for. He saw this coming somehow, set up a trap that wouldn't spring until Rhea revealed her true intentions. Tomorrow, I'm going to start setting a few traps of my own. I spend the next morning at the property management office, getting acquainted with my new role as a landlord. The building on Maple Street has been well maintained, with 2 long-term tenants and 1 vacancy that should be filled within the week. The monthly income is actually closer to $2,500, not the $2,000 I'd calculated earlier. Uncle Harold's investment has been doing better than I realized. Your uncle was very hands-off, explains Janet Morrison, the property manager. He trusted us to handle everything and never questioned our decisions. We were sorry to hear about his passing. He was a good man. Quiet, but good. Will you be taking the same approach, or would you prefer more direct involvement? For now, keep doing what you've been doing. But I'd like to receive copies of all financial reports and tenant communications. I want to understand how this business works. Janet nods and hands me a thick folder. These are the records for the past 2 years. Rent rolls, maintenance expenses, tax documents, everything you'll need. I'm driving home when my phone rings. It's a number I don't recognize, but I answer anyway. Mr. Orrin, this is Detective Lisa Park with the Financial Crimes Unit. I'd like to ask you a few questions about some unusual activity we've been monitoring. My stomach drops. What kind of activity? We've received information suggesting that someone may be attempting to manipulate your financial accounts. Can you meet with me this afternoon? 2 hours later, I'm sitting in a sterile conference room at the police station, looking at documents I've never seen before. Detective Park is a small, intense woman with graying hair and the kind of sharp eyes that don't miss details. Someone has been making inquiries about your assets, she explains. Bank accounts, property records, trust documents. The inquiries themselves aren't illegal, but the pattern suggests possible fraud preparation. She slides a sheet of paper across the table. It's a list of database searches, all related to my finances, all conducted over the past 3 months. The searches were made using legitimate legal research tools, the kind that lawyers use for asset discovery in divorce cases. Do you recognize this law firm? She points to the bottom of the page, where Mason Drake's firm name is listed as the entity conducting the searches. That's where my wife works. She's a lawyer there. And you're currently separated from your wife? Trial separation. She moved out last week. Detective Park makes a note. Has she asked you to sign any financial documents since the separation began? I tell her about yesterday's meeting, about the power of attorney document that would have given Rhea control over the trust assets. Detective Park listens carefully, occasionally asking clarifying questions. Mr. Orrin, I need to ask you directly. Do you believe your wife is planning to defraud you? I think my wife is planning to take assets that belong to me, yes. Whether that constitutes fraud is probably a legal question above my pay grade. Have you signed any documents giving her access to your accounts or assets? No, and I don't intend to. Detective Park closes her folder and leans back in her chair. Here's what I can tell you. We've been investigating a pattern of financial manipulation cases involving divorce and separation proceedings. Someone has been using insider legal knowledge to identify vulnerable assets and then manipulating the legal process to gain access to them. Your wife's firm has come up in our investigation. Are you saying this is bigger than just my situation? I'm saying you're not the only person who's been targeted. We have at least 3 other cases with similar patterns. Spouse works at a law firm, identifies assets the other spouse doesn't know about or doesn't understand, then manipulates the separation process to gain control. She hands me a business card. If anyone asks you to sign financial documents, call me first. And if you notice any unusual activity with your accounts, call immediately. Driving home, my mind is racing. Rhea and Mason aren't just trying to steal my inheritance. They're part of a larger scheme that's been targeting multiple victims. The separation isn't personal, it's business. I'm pulling into my driveway when I notice a car parked across the street. A black sedan with tinted windows, engine running. As soon as I get out of my truck, the sedan drives away. Could be nothing, but after my conversation with Detective Park, I'm not taking any chances. Inside the house, I check all the windows and doors. Everything looks normal, but there's something different about the living room. It takes me a minute to figure out what it is. The armoire doors are slightly open. I always keep them closed and locked, but now there's a gap of maybe an inch between the doors. Someone has been in my house. I grab a flashlight from the kitchen and examine the armoire carefully. The lock doesn't look damaged, but there are tiny scratches around the keyhole that weren't there this morning. Someone picked the lock, searched through the contents, then tried to make it look like nothing had been disturbed. I open the armoire and check the trust documents. They're still there, but they're not in the same order I left them. Someone has been through every piece of paper, looking for something specific. My phone buzzes. Text message from an unknown number. Stop digging or things will get complicated for your daughter. I stare at the message for a long time before calling Detective Park. They're escalating, she says after I describe the break-in and the threatening text. That means they're getting desperate. Can you stay somewhere else tonight? I'm not running from my own house. Mr. Orrin, these people have already shown they're willing to break the law. A threatening message about your daughter suggests they're willing to escalate further. Then arrest them. We don't have enough evidence yet. The break-in was too clean, no fingerprints, no witnesses, no proof of who did it, and the text came from a burner phone that's probably already been discarded. After we hang up, I call Tessa at her friend's house, where she's staying for the week. Dad, you sound weird. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, honey. I just wanted to make sure you're safe. Safe from what? How do you explain to your 16-year-old daughter that her mother might be involved with people who make threats? Just some complications with the separation. Nothing for you to worry about. Is Mom in trouble? Smart kid. Too smart for her own good sometimes. I don't know yet, but I want you to promise me something. If anyone you don't know tries to contact you, or if anyone asks you questions about me or Mom or our family situation, you call me immediately, okay? Dad, you're scaring me. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to keep you safe. Can you promise me? Okay, I promise. That night, I don't sleep much. Every sound makes me wonder if someone is trying to break in again. But the house stays quiet, and morning comes without incident. At 7 a.m., my phone rings. It's Janet from the property management company. Mr. Orrin, we have a problem. Someone claiming to represent your estate contacted our office yesterday, saying there had been an error in the trust documents. They wanted access to the rental income records and tenant information. What did you tell them? We told them they'd need to provide proper documentation before we could release any information, but they seemed to be well informed about your situation. They knew about the trust, your uncle's passing, and your recent separation. Did they leave a name? Mason Drake. He said he was your wife's attorney and that he was helping to sort out some tax issues. I thank Janet and hang up. Mason is making his move, trying to get access to the rental income before I figure out how valuable the building really is. But he made a mistake. He contacted the property management company directly instead of going through me. That gives me leverage. I call Detective Park and fill her in on the latest development. That's good news, she says. He's creating a paper trail now. Every contact he makes with your financial institutions is evidence we can use. How long before you have enough to arrest him? That depends on how far he's willing to go. If he actually tries to access your accounts or manipulate your assets, we'll have him. But if he backs off now, we might not have enough for charges. So I need to let him keep trying to rob me? You need to let him think he's succeeding while we document everything he does. After we hang up, I sit in the kitchen drinking coffee and thinking about Uncle Harold. The old man set up his trust to protect me. but I don't think even he anticipated something like this. A conspiracy involving multiple law firms, targeting multiple victims, with threats against family members. But Uncle Harold did teach me one important lesson. Sometimes the best defense is patience. Let your opponent make the first move, then turn their aggression against them. Mason Drake wants to play games with legal documents? Fine. I'll give him all the rope he needs to hang himself. I spend the morning setting up my own paper trail. First, I call my bank and put alerts on all my accounts. Any attempt to access them will trigger immediate notification to both me and Detective Park. Then, I contact the law office handling Uncle Harold's estate and inform them that under no circumstances should they provide information to anyone claiming to represent me without written authorization. We've already had one inquiry, the estate lawyer tells me. Yesterday afternoon, a man claiming to be your wife's attorney called asking about trust disbursements. We told him all communications had to go through you directly. What did he want to know specifically? He was asking about liquidation procedures, how quickly assets could be converted to cash if necessary. Mason is getting impatient. He's not just planning to steal my assets. He's planning to liquidate them quickly, probably before I figure out what's happening. My phone rings. It's Rhea. Silas, we need to talk. There are some complications with the trust situation that require immediate attention. What kind of complications? Tax issues. The IRS has questions about some of the trust disbursements from previous years. If we don't address them quickly, there could be penalties. She's lying. I can hear it in her voice. Too smooth, too rehearsed. This is the conversation she and Mason planned, probably word for word. I'll need to see the IRS correspondence before I sign anything. It's not that simple. The inquiry is preliminary, and they're giving us a limited window to respond. My colleague Mason Drake has experience with these kinds of tax situations. He can handle everything if you just give him temporary authorization. There it is. She's not even trying to hide Mason's involvement anymore. Your colleague? I thought he was just someone you were working on a case with. A pause. He's both. Silas, this is important. If we don't handle this correctly, you could lose the entire trust. Let me talk to my own tax advisor first. There isn't time for that. The response deadline is tomorrow. Then I guess we'll have to take our chances with the IRS. I hang up before she can argue further. Within 5 minutes, my phone is buzzing with text messages from her, each one more urgent than the last. She's panicking, which means Mason is panicking, which means their timeline just got compressed. That afternoon, I drive to Tessa's school to pick her up early. I want her somewhere safe while things escalate, and I want to talk to her about what's really happening. We go to a diner across town, far from our neighborhood and the law offices downtown. Tessa orders a chocolate milkshake and looks at me with the kind of serious expression that makes her seem older than 16. Dad, what's really going on? And don't tell me it's just paperwork complications. I take a deep breath. Your mother is trying to steal money from me. Money that your great-uncle Harold left in a trust fund. How much money? Enough to matter. An apartment building that generates income, plus some cash assets I didn't know about. Tessa stirs her milkshake thoughtfully. Is she working with someone? A lawyer from her firm, Mason Drake. The guy who's been texting her all the time? You noticed that too? Dad, I'm 16, not 6. I know what it looks like when someone is sneaking around. She pauses. Are they together? That's the question I've been avoiding. Is this just about money, or is there more to Rhea and Mason's relationship? I don't know. Maybe. Does it matter? It matters because it means she's been lying to both of us for a long time. Smart kid. Too smart. Tess, I need you to stay at your friend Emma's house for a few more days. Things might get complicated, and I want you somewhere safe. What kind of complicated? The kind where people make threats and break into houses. Her eyes widen. Someone broke into our house? Yesterday. They didn't take anything, just looked through some papers. But I got a threatening text message afterward. About me? I nod. I don't think they'd actually hurt you, but I'm not taking any chances. Tessa finishes her milkshake in silence, processing everything I've told her. Finally, she looks up at me with an expression I've never seen before. Not anger, exactly, but something colder. What are you going to do? I'm going to stop them. How? I'm not sure yet, but your great-uncle Harold was a smart man. He set up the trust to protect our family assets, and he left me some tools to work with. I just need to figure out how to use them. That evening, I'm back home going through Uncle Harold's papers when I find something I missed before. Tucked inside an old photo album is a business card for a private investigator named Tommy Chen. There's a note paper-clipped to the card. If you ever need to know what someone is really up to, H. I call the number. Tommy Chen answers on the second ring. Mr. Orrin? I've been expecting your call. You have? Your uncle hired me about 6 months before he passed away. He wanted me to keep an eye on certain people, make sure they weren't planning anything that might hurt his family. What people? Your wife, for starters, and a lawyer named Mason Drake. Uncle Harold knew. Somehow he saw this coming and hired a private investigator to document it. What did you find? Enough to keep them from succeeding if you're willing to play hardball. Can you meet me tomorrow morning? I have some things to show you. The next morning, I'm sitting in Tommy Chen's office looking at photographs that make my stomach turn. Rhea and Mason at restaurants, at hotels, at his apartment. The affair has been going on for at least 8 months, probably longer. Your uncle suspected something was wrong when your wife started asking questions about his health and his estate planning, Tommy explains. He hired me to investigate, and it didn't take long to uncover the pattern. What pattern? Mason Drake has done this before. 3 times in the past 5 years, he's targeted married women whose husbands have significant assets. He starts an affair, convinces the woman to initiate divorce proceedings, then manipulates the legal process to maximize the settlement. The women think they're getting a new husband and half their ex-husband's money. What they actually get is a temporary boyfriend and a small cut of whatever Mason manages to steal. He abandons them after the divorce? Every time. Once the assets are liquidated and the money is moved offshore, Mason disappears and the women are left with nothing. His ex-wife tried to warn people, but no one believed her. Tommy shows me bank records, travel documents, communication logs. Mason Drake is a professional predator who uses his legal expertise and personal charm to destroy marriages and steal assets. The good news is that your uncle's trust is bulletproof, Tommy continues. Mason can't touch it legally, but he's not planning to do this legally. What do you mean? He's planning to forge your signature on financial documents, then liquidate the assets before anyone notices. By the time you figure out what happened, the money will be in offshore accounts, and Mason will be in a country with no extradition treaty. And Rhea? She'll be left holding the bag. Mason will disappear, and she'll be facing fraud charges for her role in the scheme. I stare at the photographs spread across Tommy's desk. My wife of 17 years, the mother of my daughter, has been planning to destroy our family for money she'll never actually get to keep. What do you recommend? Tommy smiles. Your uncle left very specific instructions about what to do if this day ever came. He wanted to make sure Mason Drake never had the opportunity to hurt another family. He hands me a sealed envelope with my name written on it in Uncle Harold's handwriting. He said to give you this when you were ready to fight back. Uncle Harold's final letter is 3 pages long, written in his careful script, and it reads like a battle plan. Silas, if Tommy is giving you this letter, then Rhea and her accomplice have revealed their true intentions. I'm sorry you had to learn about your wife this way, but I'm not sorry I took steps to protect you and Tessa. The trust I established isn't just a financial instrument, it's a trap. Every clause, every provision, every seemingly odd requirement was designed to catch people who would try to manipulate you during a vulnerable time. By now, you've probably discovered the apartment building and the additional assets. What you don't know yet is that there's more. Much more. But accessing it requires following my instructions exactly. Trust Tommy. Trust Detective Park. And whatever you do, don't let them know you're onto their scheme until it's too late for them to back out. Your loving uncle, Harold. The rest of the letter contains detailed instructions that read like something from a spy novel. Uncle Harold wasn't just eccentric, he was paranoid in the most productive way possible. Your uncle was convinced that someone would eventually try to exploit your trusting nature, Tommy explains. He spent the last 2 years of his life setting up safeguards. What kind of safeguards? The kind that turn a victim into a predator. Over the next hour, Tommy walks me through Uncle Harold's plan. The apartment building was just the beginning. The trust contains provisions for additional properties, investment accounts, and business interests that will only be revealed if specific conditions are met. Conditions that require the beneficiary, me, to be under financial attack from a spouse or legal representative. He basically set up a system where the more aggressively someone tries to steal from you, the more assets you gain access to, Tommy explains. But only if you follow his instructions precisely. The instructions are complex but clear. I need to let Rhea and Mason think they're succeeding, allow them to commit to their fraud scheme, then spring the trap at exactly the right moment. The timing is critical, Tommy warns. Too early, and they'll back out and try a different approach. Too late, and they might actually succeed in stealing something before we stop them. That afternoon, I call Rhea and tell her I've reconsidered. I've been thinking about what you said, I lie smoothly. About the IRS situation and the time pressure. Maybe I should let Mason handle the tax issues. Really? She can't hide the excitement in her voice. That's wonderful, Silas. I think you're making the right choice. I'll need to meet with him directly. Go over the paperwork, understand what he's proposing. Of course. How about tomorrow afternoon? His office at 3? Perfect. After we hang up, I call Detective Park and fill her in on the plan. Are you sure you want to do this? She asks. Once you walk into that meeting, there's no going back. If something goes wrong, you could end up signing away your assets for real. Uncle Harold's letter says the documents they'll ask me to sign are legally meaningless. The trust provisions override any power of attorney or transfer agreements. Your uncle was smart, but he wasn't a lawyer, and Mason Drake is very good at finding loopholes. Then I guess we'll find out how good he really is. The next day, I'm sitting in Mason Drake's office, looking at a man who's been planning to destroy my life for months. He's younger than I expected, maybe 35, with the kind of smooth confidence that comes from never being held accountable for anything. Mr. Orrin, thank you for coming in. Rhea has explained the situation with the IRS inquiry, and I think we can resolve everything quickly. He slides a stack of papers across his desk. These documents will give me temporary authority to handle the tax issues and protect your assets from any potential penalties. I read through the papers carefully, taking my time. They're exactly what Tommy predicted, documents that would give Mason complete control over the trust assets, allowing him to liquidate everything and transfer the proceeds to accounts he controls. This seems pretty comprehensive, I say. You're asking for authority over all trust assets, not just the tax-related issues. The IRS inquiry is broader than we initially thought. They're questioning the entire trust structure, so I need comprehensive authority to address their concerns. He's lying smoothly, confidently, probably the same way he's lied to 3 other victims over the past 5 years. What happens to the assets while you're resolving the tax issues? They'll be moved to secure accounts to protect them from IRS seizure. Once everything is resolved, they'll be transferred back to you. And if the IRS determines that penalties are owed, we'll handle that out of the trust assets, minimizing your personal exposure. I pretend to consider this, flipping through the pages one more time. Okay, this sounds reasonable. Mason's smile gets wider. Excellent. If you could just sign at the bottom of each page. I pick up his expensive pen and start signing. Page after page, giving away everything Uncle Harold left me, trusting a man who's planning to steal it all. There, I say, sliding the completed documents back across his desk. I hope this resolves everything quickly. I'm sure it will. Thank you for your trust, Mr. Orrin. Trust. That's rich. I shake his hand and leave his office, knowing I'll probably never see him again. By tomorrow, he'll have liquidated everything and disappeared, leaving Rhea to face the consequences alone. But Uncle Harold's trap is already springing. That evening, my phone rings. It's Janet from the property management company. Mr. Orrin, we've had a very strange day. Someone claiming to represent your estate tried to take possession of the building on Maple Street, but when we contacted the bank to verify the transfer authorization, they said the trust account had been frozen. Frozen by who? They wouldn't say. But then we got a call from another bank asking us to redirect all rental payments to a new account, and then a third bank called, saying they were now managing the trust assets. Uncle Harold's plan is working. The documents I signed triggered automatic responses from multiple financial institutions, creating a paper trail that will be impossible for Mason to explain away. My phone buzzes with a text from Rhea. Something's gone wrong with the trust transfers. Mason says there are complications. Call me. I don't call her. Instead, I call Detective Park. It's happening, I tell her. Mason has the signed documents, but the trust assets are locked up in some kind of automatic protection system that Uncle Harold established. How long before Mason realizes he's been trapped? Probably by tomorrow morning, when he tries to access the accounts and discovers they're frozen. And then? Then Uncle Harold's real surprise kicks in. The next morning, I'm drinking coffee in my kitchen when Detective Park calls. Mason Drake was arrested an hour ago, she says. Attempted wire fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, and about 6 other charges. We caught him trying to access your trust accounts using forged documents. What about Rhea? We're bringing her in for questioning this afternoon. The evidence suggests she was a willing participant in the fraud scheme. I hang up and walk to the living room, where Uncle Harold's armoire sits in the corner like a wooden guardian. The old man knew this day would come, and he made sure I'd be ready for it. My phone rings. It's Rhea, and she's crying. Silas, please, you have to help me. Mason's been arrested, and the police think I was involved in some kind of fraud scheme. This is all a misunderstanding. Is it? Of course it is. I was just trying to help with the tax situation. I had no idea Mason was planning anything illegal. Rhea, I know about the affair. I know about the other victims. I know about the offshore accounts and the liquidation plan. Silence. How long have you known? Long enough. Uncle Harold knew too. He spent the last 2 years of his life setting up a trap for people exactly like you and Mason. What trap? The one you just walked into. Every document you asked me to sign, every financial move Mason made, every lie you told, Uncle Harold anticipated all of it. I don't understand. You will. The police will explain everything when they arrest you. I hang up and walk back to the armoire. There's one more envelope inside, one I haven't opened yet. My name is written on it in Uncle Harold's handwriting, with a note, "Open after the trap is sprung." Inside is a single sheet of paper with a bank account number and a balance that makes me sit down hard in the dog-chewed recliner. Uncle Harold didn't just leave me an apartment building. He left me enough money to never worry about anything again. Money that was protected by the most elaborate security system I've ever heard of, triggered only when someone tried to steal it. At the bottom of the page, there's a final note. Some people are worth protecting. Others are worth stopping. I'm glad I got to do both. Take care of Tessa, and don't trust anyone who wants you to sign papers without reading them first. H. 2 hours later, Detective Park calls to tell me that Rhea has been arrested. The investigation has uncovered evidence of fraud schemes involving multiple victims over several years. Mason Drake is looking at serious prison time, and Rhea will likely face charges as an accomplice. What happens now? I ask. Now you rebuild your life, and you make sure your daughter knows that some people are worth trusting, even when they're gone. That evening, I drive to Emma's house to pick up Tessa. She's waiting on the front porch, her overnight bag already packed. Is it over? She asks as she gets into the truck. It's over. What happens to Mom? I don't know yet. Probably prison, at least for a while. Tessa nods and stares out the window. Great Uncle Harold knew this would happen, didn't he? How did you figure that out? Because he was the one who told me to pay attention to Mom's phone calls and her new clothes. Last Christmas, when she was in the kitchen, he pulled me aside and said that sometimes people change, and when they do, the people who love them need to be ready. Uncle Harold. Even from the grave, he was still protecting our family. He left us enough money to be okay, I tell her. More than okay, actually. Good, because I want to go to college somewhere far away from here. We can afford that now. And Dad? Next time someone wants you to sign papers, maybe read them first. I laugh, and for the first time in months, it doesn't sound forced. Deal, but only if you promise to be more suspicious of people who seem too good to be true. Deal. We drive home through the quiet streets of our neighborhood, past the house where Mrs. Martinez is probably watching from behind her blinds, past the coffee shop where Rhea tried to trick me into signing away my future, past all the places where my old life used to exist. Tomorrow, I'll start figuring out what my new life looks like. Tonight, I'm just grateful that Uncle Harold was paranoid enough to save us all. The armoire is still sitting in the living room when we get home, ugly as ever, but I'm never getting rid of it. Some furniture is worth keeping, even when nobody else understands why. Especially when nobody else understands why.